No other mosaic inscription exists. The motif of the lion fight is not an individual invention for Stephanos. It is a common motif in ornamental borders and central panels. Here are examples from the Chapel of St. Theodore west of the Cathedral of Madaba, and in the baptistery of Mount Nebo. No names are given to them, and no one has ever considered them to be donors. Previously, I have stressed the importance of the donor's name. So, does a personal name like Stephanos indicate that he was a donor? Not necessarily. A mosaic in a southeastern side room of Church A at Deir es-Leib is divided in 9 squares, 4 of which show personifications of the seasons. In the lower angles, a bull and a lion rear up. In the upper angles, 2 horses appear with their names written above their back: Agathophron and Nike, the one that brings good, and victory, typical names of racing horses. In this case, albeit the names, the idea of a donor would be absurd. The combination of animal and name has been traced back to ancient pattern books with a common corpus of iconographical types and often provided with inscriptions. In particular, horses with names are popular in representations of the circus sphere. The concept that name inscriptions alongside animals are supposed to have been based on pattern books, while name inscriptions beside persons indicate an unidentifiable person, seems arguable to me, at least in cases like the one of Stephanos, where the motive of the lion fighter is widespread and no other evidence exists for the interpretation as donor. In the Roman mosaic of Megarius from Smirat in Tunisia, a fighter named Spitara, lower left, fights, not against the lion, but comparable, against the leopard named Victor. Stephanos, that is, wreath or crown, in my opinion, would make a fine name for a lion fighter in the arena. So, this means that the presence of an individual's name doesn't necessarily indicate that he or she was a donor. But can somebody be a donor without a name? In the upper pavement of the chapel of Priest John in Kirbat al-Mukayyad, scrolls again enclose figures from the sphere of hunting animals, 2 men offering baskets full of fruits to a representation of the earth, a veiled woman with a basket. There are several donor inscriptions, but no figure in the scrolls qualifies as such. A male and a female bust in the ornament frame, one here and one there, repeatedly have been identified as donors. They are located in the middle of the north and east sides of the framing border. As a symmetrical disposition seems likely, it is likely that a 3rd and 4th bust were once inserted in the damaged southern and western part of the frame. The man wears a tunic and a cloak. His voluminous gray hair retreats on both sides. He has a full brown beard. The woman wears a tunic and a cloak with a jeweled brooch, a golden diadem in her long open hair, a necklace and pearl earrings. A grayish nimbus surrounds her head. The man's haircut often was taken for a tonsure, his hair considered a nimbus too, which from the shape and in comparison of the 2 busts to me seems quite impossible. There are 2 inscriptions with names in this church. One refers to Bishop John and Priest John. both not qualified as donors by the formulas. The other inscription refers to 5 donors: Sergius, son of Stephanos, Procopius, son of Porphyria, Romi, Mary, and Julian. As there are more names than busts, the busts were variously attributed different names from both inscriptions. 2 elements in the female bust seems to argue against the identification with an actual woman. Respectable women did not wear their hair loose, and living women were not awarded with a nimbus. The framing border of mosaic fields often contains personifications of different kind. Although the position of the two busts does not correspond to the ordinary position of personifications, in the female bust I'd rather see a reflex of a personification than the representation of a real person. And as an example, I give the personification of Soteria in the bath, from the bath of Apollousis near Antioch. She doesn't have a halo. We have other personifications with a halo, but she has the hair open and she is embellished with jewelry. But there are several other personifications that could be compared. So, what is lacking in both images is an inscription giving the name. Therefore, for the iconography as well as for the lack of an image, of an inscription with a name, I'm convinced that the female bust does not refer to a real person, and I doubt whether the male bust does either. I'm sorry if my remarks tend more to cast doubts on identifications of donors on church floors than to explore donors belonging to social or gender groups, to analyze whether the imagery represents a specific view of the world, or to ask whether representations are realistic or typical, questions that have been discussed and stimulated in recent books and articles. I hope I was able to present reasons, first to look closely whether a figure means a church official, a donor, a deceased, or somebody else. Only then, valid conclusions can be drawn from the evidence. I promised to finish my journey in Constantinople, a short stop. In the Hagia Sophia, another potential donor is lacking a name. The mosaic over the central imperial door leading from the narthex into the nave is considered to be a donor's image by most scholars. A Byzantine emperor is kneeling at Christ's feet and opens his arms in a gesture of prayer. A first anomaly consists in the absence of a gift. While other emperors present deeds or models of churches, this emperor's hands are empty. The other uncommon feature is the absence of the name. This lack offered scholars the opportunity to argue at length in favor of an identification either as Basil I, 886 to 912, or as his son Leo VI, 867 to 886. Sorry, I mixed up it's the other way around with the dates. So, they argued at length on the base of various historical and stylistical arguments. But why would any of these emperors have renounced naming his name when giving a donation? Tsaga Gavrilovich and Alexei Lidov, almost followed by Leslie Brubaker, tried to solve this difficulty by interpreting the mosaic as an image of pan-imperial supplication for well-being of the capital city. That is, as an ideal, not a real Byzantine emperor. I don't know about another ideal image of the Byzantine emperor like this, but if their theory can be strengthened, another donor's image emerges as something else. Thank you.
We have two last talks. One is going to be looking at Byzantium from the periphery that is to us the center, that is Rome. And then we're going to end with a talk on Mashhata, which is in a way the Umayyad response to the mosaics we've been seeing so far today. The first of the talks is by Annie Labatt, who has just defended her dissertation related to this topic at Yale University and has been involved in the museum in various ways for several years. She is the person organizing the blog on the exhibition with Betsy Williams. So if you're interested in any of these issues, do go to the website and look at it. And let's welcome Annie Labatt.
Hi. Okay. Iconography, or the art historical study of shapes and forms, is often dismissed as an assemblage of lists, caricatured as a series of inventories of forms and subject matters. So much so that a distinguished scholar at Yale recently told me, "I didn't think that iconography could say anything meaningful." So it can. Reading iconographies, moving beyond taxonomies, we can apprehend significant variations between objects with the same narrative subject matter. Shifting and mobile iconographies provided a pan-Mediterranean common language and a fertile means of cultural exchange. Beginning with one object, the Fieschi-Morgan reliquary, we will inevitably be led to other objects that participate in the common language of its imageries. The Fieschi-Morgan reliquary actually made the Wall Street Journal, but the readers only got a glimpse of the reliquary, the early 9th century casket from the Metropolitan Museum of Art's collection. What the Wall Street Journal readers could see was the enameled representation of the crucifixion. What they couldn't see was that the crucifixion doubles as a removable lid. It slides, and it comes off. And it is an object well-suited to John of Damascus' insistence that our cognition is grounded in the work of all of our senses. Writing in the 7th to 8th centuries, John emphasizes the senses as the means by which the soul apprehends and discriminates material objects. Sight registers color and movement. He says, quote, "Now sight is primarily perception of color, but along with color, it discriminates the body that has color, and its size and form and locality, and the intervening space and the number, also whether it is in motion or at rest."